Meron akong isang bagong kaibigang doktor at siya ay nagtanong nung nalaman niya na ako ay nagpro-promote or somewhat living a low-carb lifestyle. Nakarinig na siya ng low carb, specifically yung keto kasi yun yung mas common na naririnig ng iba. Hindi sila ganun ka-familiar with low carb but they just know about keto. And when I explained na ang keto is actually a stricter form of low carb, so alam nila that carbohydrate is being restricted. So ano yung number one question ng friend kong ito na doktor din is, hindi ba magkakaroon ng hypoglycemia kapag hindi kumakain ng low carb? So, nung sinagot ko yan, sinabi ko, we have to remember first our basic biochemistry. Because when it comes to limiting carbohydrates, yun nga ang una talagang concern, di ba? Na baka magkakaroon tayo ng hypoglycemia. Hypo meaning mababa, gly is for the glucose, and sa imia, so it's in the blood. So a low blood glucose in the blood. And when I answer this, I tell them to remember what is one of the basic na alam nating process na nangyayari sa ating katawan the moment that sugar is low. It's actually the activation of gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis. So actually, kapag mababa yung ating carbohydrate intake, ang ating glucose intake, hindi yan basta-bastang makakasira sa ating katawan. Hindi yan mag-lead into hypoglycemia, especially clinically significant hypoglycemia, yung meron talagang risk na baka ikaw ay himatayin. Because yung katawan natin, meron siyang dapat na steady state na level ng glucose. And kapag bumababa ito, na-activate ang dalawang process. And that is, first, glycogenolysis. Glycogenolysis, ang ibig sabihin, yung glycogen or complex form of carbohydrate, storage form ng carbohydrate sa ating katawan, mostly in our liver, ay mababreak down into glucose. So, from a complex na form, so yung usual natin example, yung money, for example, yung glycogen is parang papel na pera. At kapag kailangan na natin ng barya, which is in the form of glucose, ito ay i-exchange into glucose. So, yan yung process ng glycogenolysis. So, lysis o yung pagkatunaw ng glycogen so that it will become glucose. Another source ng glucose natin is actually gluconeogenesis. So, hindi lang galing sa complex carbohydrates, it can also be created from non-carbohydrate sources. So, tatlo yung macronutrients natin na basic, di ba? Carbohydrates, protein, and fats. Yung proteins, merong glucogenic, merong ketogenic na protein. So, some proteins that we are eating can actually be made into glucose kapag ito ay bumababa. And the second one is the fats. So, yung fats naman sa triglycerides. So, it's triacylglycerol. The glycerol backbone ng triglycerides can actually be also made into glucose. So, that is the two basic chemical processes. First year medical school na pag-aaralan na yan in biochemistry and also even in basic sciences, like even in high school chemistry, kaya nga lang hindi yan napagtutuunan ng pansin. It's very basic for our body to maintain that steady state. Yung delikado lang is for those na meron ng iniinom na gamot. Because of course, kapag meron ng iniinom na gamot, especially for diabetes, pwede itong magkaroon ng alteration in our normal processes. That's why yung iba, nagkakaroon ng risk for dangerous kind of hypoglycemia. So it's another story. That's why kapag meron ng iniinom na gamot, especially for diabetics na nakapagpapababa ng blood sugar, kailangan bago mag-low carb ay makonsulta mismo sa inyong trusted doctor or our low carb doctors here to guide you para naman malaman kung ano yung kailangan i-adjust kasi hindi bawal. In fact, marami nang na-reverse yung kanilang diabetes. More than 1 year na tayo, magpo 4 years na tayong low carb. And so far, marami na tayong natulungan na na-reverse yung kanilang diabetes. 20 years diabetic, 10 years, 15 years, 18 years diabetic, naka-insulin na. But eventually, they were able to wean off. Ngayon, hindi na sila nangangailangan ng insulin. But they have to do it the guided way at first. Kasi kung hindi, baka magkaroon ng dangerous kind of hypoglycemia. Hindi bawal ang low carb sa merong mga iniinom na gamot na for diabetics sa nagpapababa ng kanilang blood sugar, but it has to be the guided way kasi magkakaroon ng greater chances na yung need mo for medication will be lower. And that is where your doctor, your trusted physician can come in. So, titingnan ko muna, baka open na yung gate ko. Tingnan ko muna, baka maiwan ako. Let me see. Wala pa naman siguro, wala pa. So, buti na lang, medyo late yung ating pag-open ng ating gate. Baka mag-boarding na. We are live here right now in Bangkok International Airport. So, for those naman na walang iniinom na gamot, low carb can actually be started very easily dahil ang ating katawan will not let it go into a dangerous hypoglycemia. Most especially if nag-low carb kayo ng dahan-dahan. That is, kapag naglo-low carb, wag mo nang bigla-biglang magpa-fasting because you might experience that side effect na naranasan ko before. When I started doing LCF, low carb and fasting, I started with fasting first, and that's why meron din mga side effects like panghihilo, konting panghihina, and I realized over time na dapat pala I started with low carb first. Dapat hindi ko muna minadali yung pagpa-fasting. You know why? Because when you are fasting directly and during your eating window, kapag nasa open na yung window mo, kumakain ka ng carbs, your struggle, ang hirap-hirap i-maintain ng normal blood glucose because your body will have to activate those processes. Whereas, kung ikaw ay naka-low carb, in times that you are fasting, hindi actually magsa-struggle ng bonggang-bongga yung katawan mo to produce glucose. You know why? Because kapag naka-low carb ka, you are no longer dependent on glucose. Hindi na lang yung glucose, yung only na source of energy na ginagamit ng katawan mo. Over time, usually in our experience, it can be as easy as 1 week. It can go as long as 2 weeks to 1 month for some, na unti-unti mag-transition ka into fat adaptation. Yan yung panahon na wherein your body is now functioning using energy coming from fats and not just on glucose. So ano yung benefit ng pagiging fat adapted? So if you can imagine, for example, if you need 1,000 worth of energy in a day, noon kapag naka-high carb ka, so kailangan meron kang 1,000 worth din of glucose. So kapag nag-intermittent fasting ka, for example, so may kumakain ka ng glucose, like for example, 500 during your eating window, and then for the remaining part ng inyong fasting window, the other 500 is kailangan gawin ng katawan mo. So it's actually a struggle. So that is where gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis can come in. So of course, it's okay at first, pero kapag araw-araw nyo yung ginagawa, it is not sustainable. You will be struggling, and from time to time, magi-give up na kayo because it is such a hard work on your liver to do that task. Whereas kapag naka-low carb kayo, if, for example, you were able to consume just 500 na glucose sa inyong katawan, sa inyong pagkain, the remaining 500 worth of energy can come from your fats. So, hindi siya ganun ka-struggle sa katawan natin to maintain that glucose because susuplayan niya ito ng fats in the form of fatty acids and ketones. I hope that is clear. I know medyo complicated yung concept na yan for some, especially sa mga baguhan pa lang. That is why if you wish to know more, we have an ongoing low carb and fasting masterclass para sa meron ng mga dinaramdam na sakit, and also for those who are perfectly fit and healthy but wants to maintain that good health, especially for the young ones, and for the not so young ones naman, it's never too late. Before, yung definition natin ng may edad na, may matanda na, like 50s, 60s, for me, I don't believe that. For me, 60 years old is still young. Kayang-kaya pa yan. My mom is already going to be 67 in a few months' time, and she is still doing great. At bukas nga ay sasali din siya sa low carb run in Bacolod tomorrow. So sa mga nasa Negros Occidental in Bacolod, it's not yet too late. You can go to SM in Toby Sports Shop, and that is where you can register. Kita-kita tayo dan bukas. I'm still in Bangkok, Thailand, but tomorrow I will be in Bacolod already. So tingnan natin, hindi pa rin open yung ating gate. And so far, parang wala ba namang gumagalaw. So we are still good. So that is the explanation that I made sa isang friend ko na nagtanong kung hindi ba tayo magkakaroon ng hypoglycemia kapag hindi kumakain ng carbs. Hindi po, because our body is more intelligent. In fact, way back millions of years ago. Kasi yung focus ng medical practice natin is just in modern medicine. Nakalimutan na natin na for the last thousands and millions of years is sanay yung katawang tao natin to go on fasting. Meron talagang mga series of days like maybe weeks even, na wala talagang makain because there's famine, meron talagang panahon na non-harvest season, meron din mga panahon na non-hunting season, wala talagang makain. And how come we were able to survive? It's because we have these mechanisms sa ating katawan, sa ating basic human biochemistry that enabled us to survive this long, and that is also what we want you to remember. Kasi kapag hindi natin naalala yan, kapag hindi natin inalaw ang ating katawan to go back to kung ano talaga yung nakasanayan natin, which is not food abundance, pwede tayong, yung pinaka-downfall natin in this modern times is actually too much food. We've been eating too much food and consuming too much food na hindi naman talaga natin kailangan, and that's why we see na maraming nagkakasakit ngayon, not because of accidents, not because of trauma or bleeding or infection, but now it's related to lifestyle. So even for those who succumb to death because of infections, opportunistic infections, mostly dahil ito sa kanilang immunity na very low to start with. So we have to strengthen our immune system, and the best way to do that is through nutrition and proper mindset, of course, and all that. So knowing what to eat and knowing when to eat may sound so simple, but it could be the secret kung paano tayo magkakaroon ng longer life, happier life, and also more energy to do what we love the most. So I think mag-open na yung gate. And para hindi na ako kailangang tumakbo, I'll see you again in our next video. Maraming salamat, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow in Bacolod City for our first low carb run. Just message LCF Events, yung official Facebook page natin for the LCF Fun Run in Bacolod. I will see you there, and also I will see you in our next video. For those who wish to know more, meron tayong ongoing masterclass for specific diseases and also for health optimization sa mga walang sakit pa, just so we know how we can maximize yung pamumuhay natin just by knowing how to eat, when to eat at the right time. See you tomorrow, everybody. Maraming salamat po. And of course, as always, stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Have a good day. Bye!